You are standing in a hallway at 2 in the afternoon in August, staring at a thermostat set to 74, but the house says 79. The air conditioner is running, not cycling, running non-stop, like it is trying to drag the whole building uphill. The vents are blowing cool air. The windows are closed, the curtains are pulled, and somehow, room by room, the house is still getting hotter. So you look at the obvious suspects, the old AC unit, the insulation, the windows, maybe the ducts, but the real battle may be happening above your head. In the attic, the air can hit 130 to 150 degrees. The roof decking can get even hotter. That space is not just storage. It is an oven sitting directly on top of your bedrooms, pressing heat downward while your AC fights from below. And the strangest part is this: the thing feeding that oven may be just a few blocked inches at the edge of the roof. But before blaming the AC, the insulation, or the windows, the viewer needs to hear the honest version of the promise. That honest version starts with Sarah Hirschberger. She is not selling a new air conditioner. She is not selling windows. She is a plain-spoken household authority from Lancaster County, where old houses, steep roofs, and humid summers teach people to respect small problems before they become expensive ones. So here is the promise without the sales gloss. The $5 fix is not $5 for an entire house. It is closer to $5 for one rafter bay, one narrow channel between two roof rafters. If your attic needs baffles across the whole eave line, the real material cost may be $50 to $120. If the openings are already clear, it may cost nothing but a careful inspection and a dirty shirt. And the $2,000 is not one magical electric bill. It is the kind of money that disappears over time when an air conditioner runs harder than it should, shingles bake from underneath, and roof decking stays damp in the wrong season. That is the reframe. This is not an AC story first, it is an airflow story. You are going to learn how attic ventilation works, how to inspect it safely, how to clear the eaves, how baffles fit, and the two mistakes that can turn a cheap fix into a costly repair. The first thing to unlearn is that attic ventilation is mainly about getting hot air out. Everybody watches the roof peak. That is where the ridge vent sits. That is where box vents poke through the shingles. That is where turbines spin, and where powered fans make people feel like something serious is happening. But none of those are the starting point. A roof vent can only exhaust air if replacement air can enter somewhere lower. The attic is not a magic chimney, it is a pressure system. Hot air leaves high, cooler outside air enters low, and the whole thing keeps moving, only when both sides are open. Block the low side, and the high side changes jobs. Now the ridge vent is still sitting there. The turbine may still be spinning. The fan may still be roaring. But high exhaust without low intake is not ventilation. It is suction looking for another source. And the next source is often your house. That means the attic starts pulling air through every weak spot in the ceiling plane, around recessed lights, through bathroom fan housings, along plumbing chases, around attic hatches that never sealed tight. Air you already paid to cool gets dragged upward, into the attic, and out through the roof. So the air conditioner keeps running, but the rooms still feel heavy. The upstairs stays warm. The thermostat becomes a witness, not a solution. This is why building codes care about balance. They require enough low ventilation area because exhaust without adequate intake can depressurize the attic and steal conditioned air from the living space. The cruel part is that visible roof vents get the attention. The intake is hidden under the eaves, behind insulation, dust, paint, bird nests, and a narrow strip of perforated soffit most homeowners never look at twice. That is where the system either begins or fails. Once that is understood, the heat moving through the roof stops looking mysterious and starts looking mechanical. By noon, the roof is not just covering the house, it is loading it. Start at the shingles. Dark asphalt catches sunlight, and in summer it can climb far above the outdoor air temperature. That heat conducts into the nails, the underlayment, the plywood roof deck, and every piece of framing touching it. Now the attic has a hot ceiling. The underside of that roof deck radiates heat downward, the same way a warm pan keeps giving off heat after the burner is turned off. It shines heat across the attic airspace, onto ducts, joists, insulation, and the top side of the ceiling assembly. Insulation helps. But insulation is not a force field. It slows heat transfer. It does not stop it. Hour after hour, the attic keeps receiving more heat than it can dump, so the materials inside it start storing energy. Plywood warms up, rafters warm up, air ducts warm up. The ceiling drywall below slowly becomes a warm surface, and that is the part people feel but rarely identify. By late afternoon, the upstairs bedroom is not only being heated by hot air leaking in, it is also being heated by the ceiling itself. A warm ceiling radiates into the room, onto the bed, onto the walls, onto your skin. Then the sun drops, outside air cools, the driveway cools. The living room may finally feel normal, but upstairs, the attic is still giving back what it absorbed all day. That is why the second floor can feel worse at 9 at night than it did at 3 in the afternoon. Proper soffit to ridge airflow attacks the problem at the source. Cooler air enters low, at the eaves. It picks up heat under the roof deck. It rises, then it exits high, at the ridge or upper vents. Before that heat has hours to soak into the house. But before anyone goes hunting for daylight under the roof, the attic itself has to be treated like a hazard. So before the inspection, do not start with a flashlight. Start with the clock. An attic in summer can reach 140 degrees Fahrenheit. That is not uncomfortable. That is dangerous. In that kind of heat, especially with no moving air, heat exhaustion can come on quickly. You may feel fine at the hatch, then weak, dizzy, or confused a few minutes later. Go at first light if you can, before the roof has been baking for hours. Take water. Tell someone in the house you are going up, not as a formality, as a backup. And if you feel unsteady, lightheaded, short of breath, or uncomfortable on a ladder, do not go. The house will still be there tomorrow. The attic is not worth a fall. There is another way to do this inspection. Have a younger or steadier person go up with a phone and record slow video around the edges of the attic. They do not need to diagnose anything. They just need to film the eaves, the insulation, the rafters, and any daylight they can see. Then you can sit at the kitchen table and inspect the footage safely. Pause it, zoom in, look for the clues without standing in a 100-degree box over drywall. If someone does enter the attic, the floor is the next danger. The fluffy insulation is not a floor. The drywall ceiling underneath it is not built to hold body weight. Step there and you can go through into a bedroom, a hallway, furniture, or someone below. Feet go only on ceiling joists or on a sturdy board laid across joists. Slow steps, 3 points of contact, no guessing under insulation. This is the boring part of the repair. Good. Boring means nobody gets hurt before finding a $5 problem that may have been costing thousands. If it is safe to look, the entire mystery comes down to whether there is a thin gray line of daylight at the eave. Go to the place where the roof nearly touches the outside wall. Not the peak, not the middle of the attic, the edge. You are looking for the roof deck sloping down until it meets the top of the exterior wall. Between those two pieces is the beginning of each rafter bay, the narrow tunnel where outside air is supposed to enter through the soffit. A healthy attic has a small opening there. Sometimes it looks like a strip of gray daylight. Sometimes it is just a dark channel that keeps going outward. But the important thing is that it is open. Air can come in low, warm up, rise, and leave high. That is the whole system. Now look at the failure. In many houses, that same opening is buried. Blown insulation drifts into the eave like snow. Fiberglass bats get shoved tight against the roof deck. The rafter bay that should be a little air tunnel becomes a plug. From the attic side, it may look normal, just insulation doing its job, but insulation belongs on the ceiling plane, not stuffed into the intake vent. Once it blocks that opening, the attic stops breathing at the lowest point. The roof still gets cooked by the sun, the attic still fills with heat, the air conditioner still runs, but the heat has nowhere easy to go. Here is the simple test. Pick one rafter bay near the eave. Gently pull the insulation back from the roof edge. Do not throw it away. Just move it enough to expose the gap where the soffit should be. Then shine a flashlight outward into that space. Have someone standing outside under the eave look up at the soffit vent. If they can see the light, you have an open path. If they cannot, that bay is blocked, or the soffit itself is sealed, painted over, or covered. Repeat this in several spots: front of the house, back of the house, over a hot room if there is one. You are not trying to make the attic pretty. You are finding the truth. Clearing the opening may make air move again, but without one cheap part, the repair can quietly undo itself. The cheap part is called a baffle. You may also hear it called a rafter vent. It is not a fan, it is not wiring, it is usually just a shaped piece of cardboard or foam that slides between two rafters and rests against the underside of the roof deck. That sounds too simple to matter, but it solves the exact failure point. When insulation sits near the eave, it wants to move. Blown insulation drifts. Fiberglass bats relax and slump. A gust through the soffit can push loose material backward. A person crawling through the attic can bump it without noticing. So if you only pull the insulation away, you have made a temporary gap. A baffle turns that gap into a protected channel. It holds a clear air path from the soffit, up along the roof deck, and past the top edge of the insulation. Outside air can enter low, stay above the insulation, and reach the open attic without being smothered at the first few inches. That is the whole trick. One rafter bay gets one channel. The baffle slides down toward the soffit opening. The side flanges press against the rafters. Then it gets stapled in place, high enough and low enough that the insulation cannot crawl back into the intake. After that, the insulation goes back where it belongs, on the attic floor, not jammed into the roof edge. In a typical house, these pieces cost a few dollars each. A stack of them can fit in the back seat of a car, and the job is often a Saturday morning project for someone who can work safely in an attic. The payoff is not that the baffle cools anything by itself. The payoff is that it protects the airflow the house was supposed to have all along. Because without that little shield, the attic can pass the flashlight test today and fail it again next season. But even a perfect baffle cannot pull air through a soffit that was never vented in the first place, so the next inspection happens from the yard. Stand far enough back to see the underside of the roof overhang. That underside is the soffit. On many houses, it is a row of panels running along the eaves. You are looking for slots. Vented soffit panels have narrow openings cut into them. They may look like little dashed lines, long strips, or perforated sections. Solid soffit panels look smooth, no slots, no holes, no intake, and if the soffit is solid, the attic can have beautiful baffles inside and still be starving for air outside. Older houses hide the problem differently. Instead of aluminum or vinyl panels, they may have wood soffits with small metal vents spaced every few feet. From the ground, they can look fine, but up close, decades of paint can seal the mesh until it is basically a decorative patch. That is not a design failure. That is maintenance. Sometimes the cheapest repair is a wire brush, a scraper, and a few minutes reopening the holes that were supposed to breathe. Paint builds up one coat at a time, and eventually the attic intake disappears without anyone making a decision. But this is also where people make the first big mistake. They see a hot attic and add gable vents. A gable vent is the louvered opening high on the triangular wall at the end of the attic. On some older roof designs, it can be part of the plan. But if your house already has a ridge vent at the peak, adding gable vents can make the system worse. The attic is supposed to pull air from low soffits to the high ridge. Gable vents can short-circuit that path. Instead of drawing from the eaves, the ridge may pull air sideways from the gable. The lower roof edges stay dead, the hottest pockets stay trapped, and wind-driven rain can get pushed through openings added with good intentions. The second mistake is treating every attic like the same attic. A spray foam, unvented attic is a different legal design. The foam is often applied to the roof deck, and the attic becomes part of a conditioned or semi-conditioned space. You do not open soffits, cut vents, or add baffles to that system like a traditional vented attic. If you see spray foam on the underside of the roof, stop and identify the design before changing anything. Now that the physical fix is clear, the code and the money reveal why those few inches matter for decades. The building code does not start with a thermometer, it starts with area. For a traditional vented attic, the common benchmark is 1 square foot of net free vent area for every 150 square feet of attic floor. Net-free area means the actual open space air can move through after the screen, louvers, and slots get in the way. Under the right conditions, that requirement can often be reduced to 1 square foot for every 300 square feet. But the catch is the part that gets missed. The ventilation has to be balanced, roughly half high near the ridge, roughly half low near the eaves. The low side matters because it is the intake. Without it, the ridge vent is not a chimney. It is just a slit in a hot roof. That is why a few blocked inches at the edge of the roof can change the temperature of the whole house. Hot attic air heats the ceiling. It heats the ducts if they run through the attic. It turns every small air leak into a pressure problem. Then the air conditioner runs longer, not because it is broken, but because the house is being baked from above while it is trying to cool from below. This is where the savings claim needs honesty. A $5 fix does not magically remove $2,000 from one electric bill. Research from places like the Florida Solar Energy Center and the Department of Energy points to attic heat reductions and cooling savings, often in the 5 to 8% range for related measures. The number can be higher when air conditioning ducts are trapped in that attic heat. The bigger money is slower, less compressor runtime, fewer brutal afternoon cycles, less heat cooking the shingles from underneath, better odds that your roof ventilation matches the warranty language printed in the packet nobody reads. That is the long math. Not a miracle, a chain reaction. A cheap intake repair can protect an expensive cooling system, an expensive roof, and an expensive summer. But the strangest part is that everyone in the housing industry already knows this, and that is the uncomfortable part. Ventilation is not fringe advice. It shows up in building codes. It shows up in shingle warranties. It shows up in the installation instructions for vents, roofs, and attic products. But almost nobody makes real money walking you to the soffit and saying, "These slots are packed with dust and insulation. Clear them." A utility company gets paid when the air conditioner runs longer. An HVAC company gets paid when a tired system looks undersized and gets replaced early. A roofer gets paid when shingles age faster than they should. An insulation crew gets paid when the attic still feels hot, and the easiest thing to sell is more insulation. That does not require a secret meeting. It does not require villains. It only requires a boring little gap in incentives, where everyone can keep doing their job while the cheapest explanation never gets advertised. Because a clean intake vent is not glamorous. It is not a smart thermostat. It is not a new condenser on a concrete pad. It is a strip of daylight at the edge of the roof, and maybe a plastic baffle that costs less than lunch. That is the lesson hiding in the heat. The most useful household knowledge is often cheap, unglamorous, and invisible from the driveway. So the answer to the opening mystery is not a new machine. It is a Saturday morning checklist. Here is the Saturday morning checklist. Go early, before the attic turns into an oven. Bring a flashlight, gloves, a mask, and a piece of plywood if you need to spread your weight across the joists. Do not step on drywall. Do not work overheated. Safety first. Now go to the eaves and look for daylight. Not a glow from the hatch. Daylight at the roof edge. If insulation is stuffed into that gap, pull it back gently. If the soffit has vents, make sure they are not packed with dust, leaves, or old paint. If the soffit is solid wood or solid vinyl with no intake, that is the problem hiding in plain sight. Then install baffles where the roof meets the attic floor, so air has a protected channel from the soffit up into the attic. That little plastic chute may be the $5 part that lets the whole roof breathe. And on cool, dry evenings, a box fan can help flush heat from the living space. But in humid August air, do not drag moisture into the house and make the air conditioner fight that too. So yes, a running air conditioner can lose because the attic cannot inhale. If you check yours, comment with your state, the year your house was built, and what you found. Clear, buried, painted shut, or solid soffit. Thanks for watching.